Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Advanced Course in Drones and Development. Today, we are going to be talking about something which is a very basic necessity for all of us, and that's food. And with food, we talk about agriculture, we talk about crop health, and we talk about much more than that. We talk about the whole ecosystem. So to be sharing the knowledge and their experience with us, we have M. Nagarajan sir from the government of Gujarat, and then we will be having Rishabh Chaudhary from Bharat Rohan. Both of them have been pioneering agriculture applications and especially with drones. So let's begin with Nagarajan sir. Sir, welcome to the course.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll start with sharing the screen.
Yes, please.
Please confirm the slide. Is it visible?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks, Dr. Ruchi, for having me here. A very warm good evening to all the participants of this advanced course in drones in development. I think drones in development are very, emerging area, and even then, there are a lot of enthusiasts who want to explore the potential of drones in various applications and sectors. And in that sense, this course is very timely for people who are seriously exploring how drones could positively impact the society. Today, I'll be sharing some ideas about how drones are very useful in agriculture. Agriculture is very important to us because it is core to the survival of our society.
Hello. Is it sir or me?
I think it is Sir who got
Okay, let's wait for a couple of minutes for him to join back.
Is increasing harvest losses, and 12 million hectare of agricultural land is being lost annually, and also the per capita availability of land, which has reduced from 0.52 hectares in 1950 to 0.19 hectares. All these things bring challenges about how do we cope up with the demand for agriculture and its products. At the same time, the farmer who is working in the field, they are still yet to get the benefit of Industrial Revolution 4.0. And we see that the Industry 4.0 revolution is impacting all the industries, smart manufacturing, digital manufacturing, MSMEs, supply chain management, across so many sectors and industries, including transport, aviation, everywhere. But what is the least impacted sector is the agricultural sector. We still have age-old practices across the world. Farmers are still having challenges in accessing even basic farm mechanization and other requirements that could improve their productivity. On the one hand, we are talking about doubling farmers' income. At the same time, we are not doubling the rate of technology adoption in agriculture. So the one of the ways to increase technology adoption in agriculture is to use drones in various agricultural activities, which we will be discussing today. If you see, the farmer today still are using doing risky job of applying fertilizers and getting exposure. Labor cost is also increasing. People are not available for doing the labor work, and aging and urbanization is also impacting the agriculture. During my interaction with a lot of farmers in the past few years, in every time I have asked, how many of you feel that your son or daughter will take up farming? And not even 0.01% of the hands go up so far. Everyone wants their child to study and do something else, but not farming, because farming is not so, it's a hard work and it's not so remunerative. How do we make it remunerative and useful and impactful through drones could be one of the possibilities. If you see, pesticides is causing a lot of deaths. We all read in the newspapers. In fact, in states like Punjab, increasing use of pesticide has has led to rampant increase in cancer, and the trains that are coming out of Punjab to major treatment centers like Delhi or Bombay are having high percentage of people who are coming for cancer treatment. Hence, they are even called Cancer Express. And we see that people lose their eyes or get sick or even die because of unsafe use of fertilizers. We can see how drones could be used to reduce this risk of farmers. Why drones? Because to bring the technology of Industry 4.0 and drones into the agricultural sector, they potentially provide a way of improving the farming productivity and increase output and bring better impact for the society. So that's why we are considering drones, and this course is about people who want to explore all these things. This is a recent study that has been done in Japan in rice farming, and when drones are the latest unmanned aerial vehicles that are available for especially pest control and fertilizer spraying. We can see that in this study, this boom sprayer, which is a regular sprayer, and a remote control helicopter was also used, and unmanned aerial vehicles, that is drones, were also used. The productivity and efficiency was increasingly higher in using drones, and you can see that in 3 hectares the efficiency is almost the highest that we could achieve, and after that it is always in the peak. So drones are useful for even a small size land holding. In countries like America, where they use aeroplanes to use as crop duster, that is all also have become old technology, and it is impossible to use in India because of very small land holdings. So this is one recent study that proves that drones are useful in increasing the efficiency of fertilizer and pest control sprayer applications. There are so many studies, I'm just quoting this one. In agricultural drone technology, there are a lot of applications like precision agriculture, mapping and surveying, crop dusting or spraying, irrigation management, and livestock management. I'll be touching upon these areas. How can drones be used in agriculture? In the crop planning phase, in the crop growth phase, and crop harvest phase. In the planning phase, we can do soil assessment. When we do a drone survey, there are many types of mapping that are available. The visual spectrum, the infrared, and also LiDAR-based mapping gives us multispectral images also. So we are able to analyze the land characteristics like temperature, moisture, slope, elevation. All this can be obtained, and this can provide a better soil sampling and better seeding plans. We can do customized farm treatment plans based on the analysis that drones are providing. Second is the irrigation and drainage planning. Elevation and terrain models help us plan irrigation and drainage efficiently. The multispectral data help identify leaky irrigation pipes or areas that need more water. The applications are literally endless. In the growth phase of the crop, we can help monitor the crop growth from emergence to harvest, and also understand the emergence pattern, population, spacing metrics, and all that. And next is the crop classification and counting. Crop counting algorithms provide accurate inventory information and help drive replanting decisions also. This improves farm productivity and thereby increase the income of the farmers. In the growth phase, disease identification and treatment plans also could be done. Multispectral sensors and artificial intelligence driven algorithms help detect diseases and stress early, sometimes even before it is visible on the crop. And also, one of the most visible use is the pesticide and fertilizer spraying. We can use survey data to spray pesticides and fertilizers with extreme precision. Droplet size, flow rate of the chemicals can also be modified as per crop requirements. It is needless to say that all these things are emerging and still learnings are happening every day across the country by various people. And this course also provides one platform for such practitioners to come and share their knowledge and their ideas that they are exploring. In the harvest phase, the yield estimation and harvest planning could also be done. The drone data can help in improving the models and predictions and planning, and also help accurately predict the harvest and yield that could be happening for each and every field. So custom planning for each and every farmer is also possible. And this also can help in creating a history of farming for the history of farming that has been done on a piece of land by the farmer. This can lead to creation of one type of Sibyl-like database where a farmer is able to show his productivity and also the nutrients that he has applied on his land, and thereby creating a live health monitor of his land. This all will be increasingly getting importance in the contract farming and commercial farming era that is coming soon. Other use cases are damage assessment for insurance. Drone data provides critical information for measuring and documenting damage to crops caused by floods, pests, weather events, etc. We all know that the recent cyclone Taukte and other cyclones have caused immense damage. Drones could be a very easy, transparent, and foolproof mechanism to assess the damage of crops and thereby give insurance compensation to the right claimants. So unmanned vehicles also provide various other options for increasing farm productivity. The automation part, the data intelligence part, the platform part, and the custom solutions. In the automation, we will be able to use the unmanned vehicles on the field for supporting ground operations, like removing the unwanted weed and other things. Also, it can work on the ground. So the farm robots are also becoming a major complement to drone operations. We can use artificial intelligence and combine the data from both the drones and on-ground robots to get better decisions. And IoT can be used for seamless, faster operations on the farm. In the IoT, the applications are very wide, like anything from climate sensor to soil sensor to irrigation systems management. Everything can be connected with the IoT, and then all these things could be intelligently connected to a common platform, thereby making farming high tech in the real sense. Data intelligence is also possible because drone imaging combined with satellite data, on-farm sensors, and other data sources give unique insights at the farm level. This is what I also meant by creating a Sibyl-like database for each and every farm and farmer of this country. We can also enable farmers with end-to-end precision agricultural services, and custom solutions also can be built on this platform. So automation for mapping and seeding is also another major operation that could be done. Diagnosis of the farm, inputs applicator like urea or seeds or any other supplementary materials that could be applied, and also precision sprayer, and the unmanned ground vehicles also could complement this. The farm level data in aggregation from the farmer, the weather satellite data, IoT sensors data, and drone diagnosis. All these could combinedly elevate farming into a really worthy practice where we are deriving value by reducing the cost and increasing the output and getting maximum benefit to all. And ultimately, this improvement will lead to better society. Artificial intelligence features. One of the example is the large volume of data from various sources can be combined in the platform. AI-based data processing using deep learning can be done. For example, plant counting also can be done in this. And this is all very useful when negotiating with contracts with the corporates. This is already happening in major areas where farmer produce organizations also will be benefited, and thereby increasing the better output for better remunerative prices for the farmers. The plant count, height, vegetation growth, nutrition, plant stress, on these are some of the factors that could be identified. So all these factors we can combine into a single platform from soil to harvest. That is one of the major, emerging application in the agriculture. And drone application is a more advanced application with competitive benefits, and less water is used. This has been proven in many other studies also, and it's can be seen in practice. And treatment cost versus manual application is also efficient in terms of the amount of fertilizer that will be needed. In fact, that is still emerging about what is the ratio of fertilizer when applied through drone is still a matter of research, and it's a lot of people have arrived at optimal ratio of fertilizer to be applied, and for various crops across the country, and this will have to be modified as per local regions also. The safety to the operator is also a major benefit, and we will not be losing precious lives. And labor shortage is a major thing. Whenever there is a harvest season in the village, the labor rate shoot up because the number of available labor is limited, and the harvest window is also limited. So drones can help overcome this problem. Field view of the, this is a one example of crop analysis where we'll be able to take a good view of the field with high resolution. In fact, drones are able to provide 1:1 image where we can measure the size of a plant up to even a millimeter. And crop disease analysis also can be done. Counting also is very easily possible and reduces a lot of manpower requirement, thereby reducing the cost of the farmers. Spraying is one of the things, as I said, it is 40 times faster than manual labor. It can reach inaccessible areas. It is very efficient because you apply only what is needed. Even the spray dots per inch could also be calculated and delivered properly because of the nozzles that are available at the nozzle level controls that has been useful, and no harmful side effects on manual labor. Other than farm spraying, mosquito spraying, and for algae plants in pond and locust control is also another important application. Seed throwing, especially mass forestation camps can also be done. And there are a lot of experiments that have been done with the seed balls across India, major states like Telangana, and in some other states also experiments have been happening. This is one of the example of where drones were used for locust, controlling locust attack. Last year it was happening, and near Pakistan border and Rajasthan area. Drones were very effectively used in spraying the fertilizer, especially in the night where these locusts were settling down, and which was not manually possible, that could be achieved, and it proved to be very effective. The challenges in using drones are, first is that drone as a sector itself is getting highly regulated. You would have heard in our other classes also that the drone regulations are still in their early stages, and there is a lot of restrictions on using drones. So it is all still waiting to be liberalized. So vehicle specifications and flight restrictions from the aviation side is one major factor. Second is the operation part of it, where the operator should be licensed properly. Some regulations about remote pilot and also drone pilots is already there, and there are schools for drone pilot training. A lot of drone pilot training agencies are also appointed. In the pesticide application, the safe use operating procedures, operator safety, and the bioefficacy is also another challenge that is yet to be, will take some time to settle down. Crop residue, and also what if there is a drift of the pesticide to other farms or other plants, that is another risk, that how to contain that. So these kind of regulations are still emerging, but that should not deter us from exploring the drones as a very useful tool for transforming the farming. And regulations right now a set of rules for operation of UAVs in agriculture sector would be put in place soon. The Bureau of Indian Standards has asked experts in the UAV systems to come up with a framework for standardization of drones in agriculture. And issues like what drone should be used, from what height it should spray, what should be the droplet size, how the nozzle should be, and how much drift should be there while spraying. These are some of the questions that need to be answered in a regulation part, and work is happening in that area. And also the standardization. Why do we need regulation? Is that this standardization would ensure that the drones are used for agriculture purpose, do not cause damage to the environment. For example, if there is a water body, it should not spray over it. And also, unlike commercial drone standardization, the agriculture drone standardization would not only would not be very stringent, and this is being done to ensure that it is farmer friendly. I think that is the need of the hour, and I hope that it will also be a reality soon. What are the things that we could do in the way forward is like fast tracking the trial and scientific projects. We need to do a lot of more pilots, and I'm sure that Ruchi and her team with the India Flying Labs and other supportive networks will be able to do a lot of trial and scientific projects very soon and bring about evidence that can support the policy. And second is recognize crop growing policies for drones and conduct sensitization programs. And we should also empower local skilled manpower and also enable drone hiring through services centers. And what is the market potential for this? For example, if we see that the net zone area in the country is like out of 181 million hectares, that is cultivable land, which is 60% of our total available land mass, out of which only 142,500 hectares, 1,42,500 hectares is a net zone area that is available with us. This is in 2010. I'm not sure about the current figures, but we can take it as a rough estimate. So, and if we assume that we have 1,42,500 hectares of net zone area, and if we assume that even 10% of it is being used in the drone technology across the various life cycle, we can see that 1 crore 42 lakh 50,000 hectare of land will be there, and suppose we need one drone for 100 hectares of land. I think that's a sort of a ballpark figure I'm just quoting. Somebody needs to do research and confirm whether it is right. So we will need at least 142,500 drones. That is 1,42,500 drones that will be needed just for 10% of crop, 10% of adoption in net zone area. And each drone can provide employment to 2 people directly and 2 people indirectly. That will create almost 5,70,000 jobs for youth across the country, even in interior places and villages. They can be enabled. Even an ITA student, a polytechnic student could become a drone operator, and then they can support the local farmers. So farming productivity and farmer income can be increased substantially. So this is the kind of impact that we are looking. A drone is not just a aerial vehicle that can fly, but it is a tool that can be used various varieties of ways in different sectors. And the physical act of flying is only very small part of the game. What comes out of it and the built on the data and the applications that we build to create services and to the needs of the so that way drones are enablers
Just a minute, he's returning back.
Yeah, I hope I was able to complete it properly.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I think you just missed last 10 seconds is what you missed of yours.
Okay, I was talking about the transformative opportunity that drones present in agriculture. Technology is always an enabler, so we should use drone as an enabler. And I look forward to any questions.
Do we have questions for sir? Yes, Azad. So Azad will be typing in. Is NPNT compliant needed for agricultural drones?
Yeah, I think like I shown in the last is one of the last slides. The aviation laws is paramount. So first, NPNT compliant is one of the core parameters of drone compliance. Until and unless a special exemption is provided, NPNT is compulsory.
Yes, Rishabh.
In fact, currently we have to register even a toy drone because I have done my registration.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Yeah,
It was
good
very
evening.
nice presentation, and you, I think, covered every aspect that how drones can, enable Indian agriculture. So, like my question is a follow up on Ajat's question. Like there are a lot of companies that are into delivery of delivery of food and all these things. They are entering into this drone space, and they are getting lot of like validation from the government itself. But on the meanwhile, while we see on the agricultural side that if the companies are doing something, they are not promoted by the government, or they are not given any kind of relaxation in terms of whether they are working with the farmers, or whether they are enabling farmers with the technology apart from the spraying part. Because I think there are few players in the industry, in the agriculture industries, who are trying to work with farmers. But since these NPNT laws are very stringent, and you need to fly a drone, before flying a drone you need to upload a map, and you need to take permission for each and every flight. And sometimes it is not physically challenged, because like I got a permission to fly a drone at this particular time, but it rains, and I am not able to fly, or sometimes whether it is raining in the night, and I have to go fly for like 1 hour after rain stops. So like do you think that government will see these challenges and do something for players in agricultural sector only?
Yeah. I think they are already cognizant of these challenges. In fact, the slide about Bureau of Indian Standards, it mentions that farming needs relaxed laws, which are not as stringent as other things, because the area of operations would not be so risky. So I think that the regulation should come soon, and I am sure that it will need 2-3 iterations, but ultimately we will settle down upon something that is workable. But it is still some more time until we reach that phase.
Okay, thank you.
Likhin?
Hi, sir. It was a nice presentation.
Thank you.
So, we are a small team working with IIIT Bangalore to take. We're building a trainer drone that is completely focused on how to helping farmers use drones as tools for different applications in agriculture, but very specifically for training them on how to use these to create awareness and exposure. It's a small drone that we are making. But one challenge that even the IIIT Bangalore team is asking us, and even other people are asking us, is how would you go and do these trainings? So let's say, and we are based out of Bangalore. So their question is, the best agricultural university in Bangalore, in Karnataka, is in the Dharwad region. And so would you call farmers to come to Bangalore to take the training, or would you call them to come to Hyderabad to take the training? Or is there another way you can come and partner and set up a training, what do you call it, training and licensing institute with us? So their questions are, would we have to send our farmers? Would we have to come, or would you come and do it? So what is the best way to do training with farmers, sir? I mean, according to you, institutionally?
Yeah. See, right now, since drones is there, we cannot force farmers to use the drones. Nobody, as a farmer, I wouldn't care whether my farming productivity is coming because of tractor or because of drone or because of anything. I am focused on how I can do better farming. So sometimes we mistake, technology to be the solution. Technology is the way to a solution. It is not the solution. And also in drones, I again told that drone is just something that can fly. I can compare a drone to a car. It has four wheels and it has a box and it can take you anywhere. Same way, a drone is something which has some wings. It can have a propeller wing or a fixed wing, and it can fly and give you some data or deliver some things. But the real value comes out of what you do out of it. So if you want a model for training farmers, it is not actually training farmers. The question is, how do we take drones to the farm? So if you want to take drones to the farm, you need, because it is a specialized operation. It's not like tractor. Somebody could, take a driving license and use it. So it is not the same as taking a driving license. One thing which I feel could work is to have trained the local youth who are, have done ITA or diploma or polytechnic. Take 2 or 3 people, train them and make them a team, give them 1 or 2 drones, and then assign them an area of operation, say 100 hectares, like I said in my one of the slides. Like that, if we are able to, in one gram panchayat, typically we have 100 to 150 farmers. And if we have 2 drones, we can, by turns, service the entire farmers for whatever their need as per their crop. So it will be a much more workable proposition if you have a team who are supporting this technology. They are like agricultural service providers. We already have this concept of agricultural service providers. For example, in potato cultivation area, there are potato processors whose only job is to run the potato processing unit. Whenever there is a season, you go and give your potato, they will sort it, grade it, and give it to you. So like that, whenever you want someone to use the drone, they will go and book a call with them. In fact, now like Urban Clap or Uber, I can compare it to Uber. If you have a common platform where all the operators, drone operators are signed up, you just go and select which village where you want, what is your field. Your field would be, if not mapped already, it would be mapped once, and your metadata and your customer ID, farmer ID is available, and you just book a call like Uber, ride. They come and just do the work that is to be supposed to be done. And there are 2 options in that. Either you give the fertilizer, or the farmer, the service provider also bring their own fertilizer. They will come, deliver everything, and go. So that is also a workable model. In fact, that should be explored, and I think that will succeed well.
Thank you very much, sir.
Can you hear me? Was
Yes,
that
we can hear
clear?
you. Yes, sir. Very clear.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Pretty clear. Thank you.
Yeah. And still, if there is anything that we should discuss offline, I will be glad to discuss.
Sure, sir. That will be nice.
Sure. Thank you. So we can move with the next presentation from Rishabh Chaudhary, Bharat Rohan, and they have been doing an amazing job in the northern part of India. So I welcome Rishabh to the course.
Yeah, hi everyone, and it was a very nice presentation by Dr. Nagarajan sir. And I think he covered each and every aspect how drones can help in Indian agriculture, and like it was a really good presentation. So I think he covered like little bit of my presentation also. So I will try to keep my focus on like how drones, particularly in in prediction and identification of disease, how drones help. So I will be focusing only on that. So I will be sharing a small presentation, and then if anyone have a question in between the presentation or after that, they can ask me. So can you make me the presenter?
You would be having the presenter rights.
Oh,
Everyone
sorry.
has it in Google Meet. Yes, we can see the screen.
Yeah, so like the agenda of today is like how drones help in agriculture. So first of all, I think Nagarajan sir has covered mostly about like what are the challenges in the agriculture. But I would like to add that agriculture is the main source of livelihood for like 58% of India. And apart from these challenges, the farmer faces fundamental issues like including lack of information on farm inputs, unorganized credits, and absence of market linkage. So, to put these things in perspective, most farmers are compelled to use the traditional channels to purchase raw materials such as seeds, fertilizers, and other farming products. Moreover, there is a loss of around 30 to 40% in total harvest due to pest and disease outbreaks. Apart from that, there are various level of distribution and supply chain where the loss happens, which amounts a very low earning for our Indian farmer. Also, the Indian farmer, the acreage of our Indian farmer is less than 1 acre. Is around like is in North India it is around like 0.25 acres, 0.25 acres to 1 acres. And also these whole land is not at a single place; it is scattered. So so generally, if a farmer have an area of 1 acre, it will be scattered in 3 or 4 or 5 patches. So it is very challenging for an smallholder farmer to to produce crops and to do a sustainable agriculture, and that's why we are seeing a decline in agriculture, like Sir said that if you go to a farmer and ask their kids that whether do you want to continue with the farming, so they all will say no. I think I haven't heard, like working with a lot of farmers, I haven't heard a yes from anyone, from anyone's kid who is a farmer. So the challenges are that our population is increasing rapidly, and to maintain that pace, we need to produce a lot. and and while doing that, we are doing a lot of we are infesting our land with lot of chemicals, lot of water, and these are making agriculture a non-sustainable thing. Also, there are also, due to climate change and different weather conditions, there are a lot of losses due to pest and disease outbreaks, and farmer practices improper techniques which causes soil degradation. So I think that there is a need to adopt precision agriculture, because by adopting innovation to become sustainable and profitable, that is the best thing for the farmers. So like what precision agriculture do is, like there are certain standard sets of cultivation practices that farmer has to follow to to grow sustainably. Also, they also with the help of precision agriculture, we can we can properly use the chemicals and lower our production cost, while giving while giving the minimal environmental impact to the environment. Also, precision agriculture helps a lot in maintaining water, chemical, and humidity in the field. So basically, like drones in agriculture has been used for like three major purposes. That is UAV based mapping for advisory, for general advisory like crop health, uh, yield, and then for irrigation purposes, and then thirdly for the crop dusting purposes, to spray fertilizer, to spray chemicals on the field. So so right now we will be talking only on like health monitoring perspective. So the drones can be equipped with n number of sensors, whether it be RGB sensor, whether it be multispectral sensor, and whether it be hyperspectral sensors. So what happens in the plant is that the plant absorb light and do photosynthesis. So whenever there is a certain kind of disease or certain kind of pest occurs in a plant, there is certain change in the photosynthesis of the plant. So plant might reflect differently, right? Also, if we collect these type of data, we can analyze this data in our software, and we can check that like what kind of nutrition or what kind of disease or what kind of pest is there in the crop, and we can even identify that at what stage the crop is in and what it requires to grow healthy. Also, with the help of the drones, the farmers can get a good estimation using HD images at what is going on in the field, and it happens. Like for example, for sugarcane crops, the farmer can't go in between of their crop and can't see that what is going on in their field. So with the help of drones, they can see like whether whether it has his crop in the middle is doing good, or whether the crop is whether is there any kind of anomaly in their field. Also, if there is a leaky pipe, or if there is a water is coagulating, or there is something else that is going on in the farm. So right now people are using drones for different purposes, like they are using drones to make DTM, to make DSM, so that they can integrate proper flooding techniques or proper watering irrigation techniques to their farm. As I said, apart from that, drones can be used for irrigation also. So drone equipped with thermal sensors and multispectral sensors can identify that which area has optimum soil moisture, or which area need irrigation, or which area has high moisture content. So it gives a better understanding to the farmer of what is going on in their field in the real time. So this is a simple diagram telling you that how drone works. So basically, whether it's a small drone, mini drone, or a big drone, it can carry a sensor, and the sensor can be of n number, like anything. Like it can be a thermal sensor, it can be an RGB sensor, it can be a multispectral sensor, it can be hyperspectral sensor. Based on the sensor, we will be getting a lot of data, and then with the use of that data, and with the use of techniques like AI and machine learning, we can post process the data and get some kind of actionable insight or actionable result, which can then be translated to the farmer, and which will help him to increase his food production. So like I told you, what we see is basically in red, green, and blue wavelength, and it is a broad visual spectrum. So let me give you example. So whenever we as a human, we are infested by some kind of disease or pest, so we see symptoms. We get fever, we get cough, our tonsils get big, and we get swollen glands. So there is an type of observations that we can observe to find out whether we are healthy or not. So say in similar condition, the plant behaves the same. So what happens when a disease or when a pest attacks a plant? So then there will be a certain changes in the plant, whether in the browning of the leaves, or the leaves will fall off, or the stem will rot, or there are certain color changes that occurs in the plant itself. So with the we as a human have a limitation on our visible side. So we can't see what is going on in the plant in the real time unless something has changed. So suppose if a disease has infested a plant, we will see the change only when the leaf have turned to brown. But leaf doesn't turn brown in a second or a minute or a day. It changes its colors gradually. But since we don't have that wide spectrum of visibility, we can't see it. So that's why that's where multispectral and hyperspectral imagers come, and they can actually see that what is going on in the plant and what is happening. So let me give you example of a multispectral sensor. So multispectral sensor usually have 5 to 8 bands, and these are very very small bands. So if there is a very minute color changes is occurring in the plant, they will identify it. But with the hyperspectral sensor, the band width get very narrow. It's around like 5 nanometer or 4 nanometer in some cases. So hyperspectral scanners have a very high spectral resolution, and because of their narrow bandwidth, and they measure radiation over several small wavelength ranges. And with that small wavelength, we can make continuous spectrum of radiation, and we can detect each pixel in an image. So this allows for a fine differentiation between fine differentiation on targets based on detailed reflectance and absorption responses, which are not detectable using broad wavelength range of conventional multispectral sensor and RGB sensors. But the only downside of hyperspectral imaging is that the volume of data that comes in is very high, and it takes a lot of space to store it. So yeah, like I told you that individual farmer can visit their field and can see what is going on in their field, but they don't but they aren't unable to early identify or early diagnosis that detect that what kind of disease or what kind of pests are there in their field, unless there is certain kind of damage or certain kind of changes that is visible to their human eye, to their eyes. So to analyze all these data that we capture from the drones, we need to create a vegetation index. So vegetation index is generally a kind of a mathematical formula which compare that what that light reflects from one band, and how light reflects in different band. So for commonly we know NDVI, which works in red band and near infrared bands. So like as you can see now, like if you apply this NDVI algorithm using a multispectral camera, like taking data from a multispectral camera, you will see that NDVI value of stress plant will come lower than the NDVI value of a plant that is healthy. So these are some of the algorithms that are used in agriculture that help farmers to identify and detect pest and disease and various other stresses in early stages. Also, with the help of multispectral sensors and hyperspectral sensors, we can detect whether the plant has some induced water stress or not. So as you can see in this picture, we use multispectral and thermal sensor to identify that whether the crop is stressed from water, or whether optimum water supply is maintained to the crop or not. So these are some case studies where we have used multispectral and hyperspectral imagery to detect disease and pest and nutrition deficiencies. So here is an example where the mint borer was present, and you can see in these small red areas, we can identify that these areas has been infested by pest, and we have generated certain advisory to the farmer where he can spray this flubendamide at 20% in their fields to correct his farms. Also, we can see that the fields that are visually similar don't look visually similar when seen through hyperspectral or multispectral imager. So so this is a example of a rice field where two crops were there, and they were looking very visibly similar. But as you can see, while we did capture data from that field, and ran our algorithms, we find out that one field is very healthy and the other field is stressed or damaged. So when we did the ground truthing, we found the same results. So in short, hyperspectral is a branch of spectroscopy which has information on spectrum and spectral in three axes. So basically, the data that comes from spectral sensors is called a data cube, and this data cubes looks like this. So as you can see, it's a three-dimensional data. So we can easily identify that the differentiate between green vegetation, dry vegetation, soil, and color night. And apart from these, we can identify like lot of parameters which have a unique spectral signature. So yeah, so there are a lot of benefits of hyperspectral imaging in agriculture. So we can identify that what kind of pest is there. Like if a plant is infested by two different diseases, we can identify the both of these diseases based on their spectral signature. So how it works is that we grow plants in greenhouses. Then we induce like a pathogen or a disease to a plant, and then we record the whole life cycle of that pathogen, like when it infested on the plant and how the plant reacted, and like on day one how does the plant looks, and how on day 20 how the plant looks until the plant dies. So when we have when we capture all this data, then when we go to the field, we can easily identify that what is going on in the field, based on our data that we have collected in the lab itself. So as I said, that each disease and each pathogen has a different spectral signature. So if a plant is infested by a disease or two disease, or disease plus water stress, or any other stress, we can easily identify it, and we can ask farmer to take certain measures to overcome these challenges. So yeah, so we made like hyperspectral imaging setup that is designed to face Indian challenges. So yeah, so as I said that hyperspectral sensor has 145 plus spectral band, which gives a lot of information about the condition of the crops. So these are the kind of advisory that we as a company give to our farmers. So where the smallholder farmers can come together and form a group. So when they form a group, then it is easier for us to to cater them, and then we can easily implement all these techniques and all these technological advancement that we are giving them, and they can work easily. And also if they form a cooperative, then they get to access to more supplies and market at reasonable cost. So by working as a cooperative, the goal is to reduce the cost by increasing the scale. And in other words, that more agro producer can join together to compete and make the cost of production cheaper, and they can compete with the large industrial corporation in a fair way. So like we Bharat Rohan offer like lot of information on the field itself, that we do farm geotagging of the fields. Then we advise the farmers the basil dosage. We help farmer procuring the certified seeds. Then we do periodic monitoring using our drones when a crop attains a height of 15 to 20 centimeters. Then once we have done our survey, and we provide advisory based on our surveys. And then when the crop is ready to harvest, we predict what kind of yield they will get, and what will be the right time for the harvesting. And also we help them in grading, and then when everything is sorted, we help them in the market linkage. So this is a case study of a farmer, Ashish Kumar, that grows peppermint, paddy, and potato in Barabanki, in Uttar Pradesh. So earlier, when before Bharat Rohan, he was spending 15,000 rupees per acre on agriculture input in just one crop season. So like this Japanese mint is a 3-month crop. So in 3 months, he was spending around 15,000 rupees purely on agri chemicals and fertilizers. And after doing that, even then his crop was lost by 30 to 40% due to like pests known as mint borer and hairy caterpillar. So after our intervention, that his cost of production of agriculture inputs decreased by like 11,380 rupees per acre. So earlier he was spending 15,000. Now he is spending only 11,000 rupees in terms of agriculture inputs. Also there was increase of around 20 kg per acre in their field, which is around like 45 to 50,000 rupees per acre. So yeah, so that is what we do at Bharat Rohan, and this is how drones can help in agriculture. So if you have any questions, you can please ask me.
Thank you so much, Rishabh, for sharing your story with us. And I would like to share about you with everyone that the team of Bharat Rohan has been appreciated for their work, I think, across the globe. And in India, we hardly know about them, but then they're picking up pace. So all the best and congratulations, Rishabh, for that.
Thank you, ma'am.
May we have some questions, please? Yes, Likhan.
Um, I think you're exactly right, ma'am. I tried to find Rishabh after I read about him, and I could not find a digital, like your digital footprint is so less. बस website पे चार चीजें दिखती हैं, and we can't really find you. Great work. The way you have productized it's brilliant. So I have a very simple question, and I was quizzed by this question by the head of agri-tech at IFCO Kisan, and I was having a discussion with him, and he said that I am getting data sets for a period of 3 months data sets of remote sensing, satellite data for a period of 3 months at 100 rupees, and the data comes every 2 days. Periodically for every 2 days, the data comes to them. So his point was he has worked quite a lot with drones. He was an ex-student of Manage from Hyderabad. So he said, I have used drones, but I feel remote sensing data is becoming cheaper each and every day, and very closely, in every 2 days, the data is coming to me at such a low cost. So why should I use drones for farm advisory? So I think I'm putting forward the same question to you. I did not have a lot of technical knowledge to even, answer him back. So I thought I'll I'm putting forward this question to you, what he said.
Yeah. So yeah, we are used to these questions. Like satellites are doing everything and they are getting data, but why we are using drones? So to counter this, I would like to tell you that the satellites that are generating data, the spatial resolution is of like 1 meter or like 2 meter, or the data that is that is free of Sentinel-2A, I guess. So that data is in meters. So so the GSD comes around in meter of like 1 meter or like 10 meters and things like that. And most of this data is basically RGB data or multispectral data. So these data doesn't have that much value. So while we are flying our RGB camera or multispectral hyperspectral camera, we get a ground sampling distance of around like 5 centimeters or less than that. So with that accuracy, we can predict, we can easily identify that what is going on in the field itself, right? At that time. So the precision is very high, and the data set that we are getting from drones is you can't compare it with the satellites. So that the information that is into these kind of data is very huge in compared to satellites. Also, satellite have various issues with clouds and other things. So yeah, I think that in that way the drone data is very superior to the satellite data. And with satellite data, you can just I think just can tell that what is going on in the field. Like you can you can identify whether it is healthy or not. But to find that what is going on in the field and like how much crops are affected and how what is the extent of damage, that you can't find with the satellite. That for that you need a drone with a high with capabilities of multispectral, hyperspectral imaging, also with a good GSD.
I would like to.
Yes, sir, please.
So, the question was, the remote sensing data is something which is captured from afar, and the resolution issues that Rishabh highlighted are there. Whereas drone is providing a near sensing, up to 1 centimeter also you can calculate. Also, the depth of the availability of parameters on which you could do analysis is increased. So the use case is different. For a person who wants to send farm advisory or a larger area, for him remote sensing will do. So that is like climate or weather data ki aaj barish hoga nahi hoga sort of things. But a drone data is like your blood report. It is very individual and personalized. So that way the applications are different. One is very intensive and focused, other is extensive and wide area applicable. So we can the applications are slightly different.
Thanks, sir. That was nice. Can I have a follow-on question? A second question actually to Rishabh. Yeah. No, I was. So there is a huge amount of case study absence of case studies is what at least I have not been able to access, and the case study that you showed for the farmer benefit before and after for the farmer. The question lies there itself, that at what cost did it were you able to provide this service to the farmer? So you said there was approximately 3,700 approximately rupees per acre input cost reduced, right? But what was the cost of the service? You just ballpark numbers for the farmer.
Yeah, so like if you go to a farmer's field and you tell them that I will provide these kind of advisory services to you, so he will straightly say no, I won't pay you anything. So this is a quite a sad condition of Indian farming, and I think it is not sad. I think it is a bit sad, but the farmers have faced a lot of issues, not in advisory part, but also in market linkages and in selling their produce also.
Trust
So
deficit.
yeah, yeah. So like when we started interacting with farmer, we saw that the farmer doesn't see this lack of information as a challenge, right? So the main challenge for him is to produce his to sell his produce at a better price. So if you go straight to the farmer and tell you that I will you want I will you will pay me for these services, he will straightly say no. So you have to pay, you have to bundle it in that way that farmer accepts it, and then he is already ready to board with you.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, so when we went to the farmer, we don't we tried to when we started in 15, so we tried to tell farmer that we are going to charge like 1,000 rupees from you for an season. So it was a very small money in the terms of that value we were saving, but like they refused it. Like not all of the farmers were on board with us, and they said this will not add any value. So then we got to know that we should add some kind of value in market linkage or in other things where the farmers see some kind of change in their see some kind of tangible change. Then when he will start trusting you slowly, then you can build a model out of it. So right now we don't charge farmer on advisory part.
Interesting. Thank you for the patience, like patiently answering all the questions.
Oh, it's okay.
So, Rishabh, what have been your main challenges in your project so far?
Main challenges is to outreaching the farmer and telling them that these kind of things are there, and you can get help by these kind of technologies, because like most of the farmers in Indian agriculture are not very technologically literate, right? They don't know what tech can do for them, whether it be us or whether it be any other company that are into AI or IoT or anything farm mechanization. So they don't believe in technology easy. So you need to spend some time talking to them and asking them what is their problem and listening to them. And then like once you work for a while with them, then you will be able to build trust. So that is the main challenge, that these farmers don't trust you easily. So you need to build your relationship with them so that they can trust you and follow these technological advancements. Also also most of the farmers rely on the second hand data. Like a classic example is that if you go to any Indian village and you will ask a farmer that how do he know that what is going on in their field. So he will tell you that he saw his fields, and if there is any problem, he will go to someone who is more educated than him, or a chemical shop dealer. So these people don't identify their problem, like the real problem. They will tell him anything and he will apply anything. So because these people live in community, so they are tightly knit, and they believe more on them than on you. So yeah, building trust with the farmer is a great challenge.
So, how do you overcome that?
Uh, so yeah, as I said, it's a long process. So you need to work with the farmer for like one year, or like one whole cycle, and two cycles or three cycles. Then when he see that there is a tangible benefit in working with us, and he gets like weather advisory on time or soil advisories on time, then he start trusting us. And then maybe in next 1 year or like one cropping season, he will take our advisory more seriously.
So, how important it is for people to be from the same location or language or culture to interact with the farmers? Do you see that as a barrier or as an opportunity?
Yeah, I think like India is very diverse. So if you go like in UP itself, if you go from one in south or in north, you will see a different language, and if you go somewhere else, there will be different language. So yeah, so what we do is that we can't speak all of the languages, right? So earlier we working in Hyderabad, so we can't speak Telugu, or in Karnataka we can't speak Kannada. So what we do is we form a small group, and we find there are always progressive farmers who who are very progressive and who know a little bit of English, and they can help us find some agriculturist people who can talk into similar language. So yeah, so that is how we work. And yeah, it is like being uh, language is always a barrier to communicating with the farmer. So as as a non-speaker of some language, if I know, and if it is not my mother tongue, I can't make him understand very clearly. So that's why we need that's why we identify like key you know key farmers who are very who are very technologically advanced to help us in reaching out the farmers.
And how important is the government support in what you do?
Uh, Yeah, I think government support is very important, because because as a private entity we can't reach everywhere, and whether we have a good technology and everything, but like India is a huge country, and we can't be everywhere. So we need government intervention in promoting our technologies, and replicating it, and and transferring it to other partners, whether private or public, so that that whole India can be benefited. I think government is doing a good job in agri-tech sector. There has been a lot of lot of focus has been there from the government side, whether it be incubators, whether it be seed funding and startup funding. So I think yeah, government role is very crucial in agri-tech sector.
Thank you, Rishabh. I don't think we have any more questions from anyone. So would like to call the session to an end. And once again, I would like to thank Rishabh and Nagarajan sir for their generous sharing of their knowledge and experiences. And I'm very sure that the students who are right now watching us live would definitely benefit from what we have discussed, but also the ones who would be learning later on by watching the recording or by learning about this topic even more on their own through assignments or through their personal research would definitely benefit. So thank you very much for being on the course, and we hope to keep learning from you more in the future.
Yeah, thank you everyone.